Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next YouTube video. This is going to be my next Transformers comic review from IDW Comics. And what I'm going to be reviewing today is Robots in Disguise Volume 2. Obviously I have reviewed Robots in Disguise Volume 1, but today obviously Volume 2 of that series. And what this volume contains is the next 4 issues of Robots in Disguise. So they are issues 6, 7, 8, and 9. As well as that, the trade also features a cover gallery at the back. So that's all there is in terms of extras. So in that way, this isn't the best trade. It's a 4-issue trade that has cover galleries as a special feature. To me, that's not great because basically that means that this costs more than the single issues cost to buy together. And that's just not right. It's okay if they only put a cover gallery into, say, a 5-issue trade, because you're getting the issues for cheaper as a whole, but when you only do it before, it's just bad practice in my opinion from IDW. And I much prefer to see 5-issue trades, or 4-issue trades with a lot of extra features. But anyway, let's get into this book itself. Written all by John Barber, art by Livio Ramondelli on issue 6, Brendan Cahill on issue 7, and then Andrew Griffith, who was the artist on all of Volume 1 and pretty much the rest of the series, is on issues 8 and 9. So a few different people on art duty for this book, but I'll get through it now. So we start off with issue 6. This is the issue that opens up this trade, and what's interesting about issue 6 is, like More Than Meets the Eye Volume 2, they go and explore a side plot. With More Than Meets the Eye, it was the Scavengers and the DJD. With this, it's, as you can see, Optimus Prime, or as he's now calling himself, Orion Pax, his original name. He's no longer Prime, but he's still out to do stuff. And this is an interesting thing because I suppose after issue 5 you're kind of glad of the break away from the more politically based stuff to go on this adventure with Orion Pax, because I honestly wasn't expecting to see him for maybe a few years in the comics and then come back to him later, but the fact that they're telling us a story with him while he's away is excellent. I'll start with the art because I think the art is actually perfect for this type of story. It's Livio Ramondelli on art, inks, colours. He basically, all the art is him. And as you can see here, it's a very painterly style, very atmospheric, and it's perfect for the type of story that this is. A lot of mystery going on, a lot of dark stuff happening in the background. Characters like Shockwave, Jaxus in the background, Monstructor. Very, very fitting for this thing, and he does a good job. The one complaint I'd have is maybe that as a whole, everything is quite dark. Like, I'd love to see his art in a more brighter comic, because it's just really, really dark. You see, there's a Monstructor, he's a combiner. Now, the basic story of this is that Optimus Prime obviously has left at the end of Death of Optimus Prime, and he's now Orion Pax. He's just no longer leader of the Autobots. But what happens is he gets a call from Hardhead and goes to visit him at this bar. And it turns out that Hardhead on his ship has captured Jaxus, who is this evil scientist from the past who basically invented the first combiner. He invented Monstructor, and now he's kind of crazy. He did a lot of stuff in the past. But the point is, they have him captured now. He can't do anything. But they hear this signal from the planet. Before they leave, they meet up with Wheelie and Garnak in this bar. Now, Wheelie is a character who was missing on this planet, LV-117 or 8, I can't quite remember right now, but for millions of years he kind of missed a lot of the war, but not all of it, and was stranded on this planet until, in the past ongoing, Rodimus found him when he crashed down to this planet, and saved him, but he really hasn't joined up with the people in Cybertron or the Lost Light. He's on his own. And he's gone off with Garnak, who is also involved with that kind of Rodimus story. And he's an alien from one of the planets, but he has a friendship, I suppose, with some of the Transformers. And this group of four basically goes off to a planet because they hear this signal and it's affecting Jaxus. When they arrive there, it's set up in the start of the issue that Shockwave has been there. He's done something. He is the big villain behind a lot of the stuff going on in this. But Orion Pax doesn't know that yet, because Shockwave is still in the rest of the story in OID, but back on Cybertron. But with here, what happens is basically they come across what he's done to the planets. Basically in ruins after he's seeded the planet to make energon there, and it's basically ruined the planet's habitat. And what they find there is obviously lots of dead people from this planet, as well as Monstructor frozen in ice. He snaps out, and it turns out it's all been a trap to get Jaxus back. Set up by Bludgeon, who obviously Jaxus is Bludgeon's master. Yeah, that's right. And it's all been a trap, so obviously as Hardhead and Optimus Orion take on Hardhead, Wheelie and Garnak are attacked and really badly injured by Bludgeon. He leaves them alive on purpose, and Bludgeon leaves them a trail to follow then. And they basically are off to try and get Jaxus back, but also capture Bludgeon and that sort of thing. And it's just this mystery setup, and like, why go to so much effort to get this guy back? Something's going on, Monstructor's involved. And it's just this nice mystery that Optimus can do now that he's no longer in charge of like a whole group of people, the Autobots. And it really works. And especially having read issue 10 and where it's going, it's actually really interesting. A complete change from the rest of Robots in Disguise and how that's working out. But move on to the next issue, issue 7. As you can see here, Turmoil is on the front cover. He's basically Drift's kind of arch nemesis. He was Drift's commanding officer when he was a Decepticon. And what happens here is that Turmoil basically arrives on Cybertron on a ship. And those ships have been landing, and they've been allowing them all to the planet because they can't. None of the three people in charge, Metalhawk, Bumblebee, and Starscream, can be seen to basically turn away any ships. Otherwise, they'll be in bad with a group of people who are going to vote for them, basically. So Turmoil, this really bad guy, no one really likes, comes back on this ship. Wheeljack, who's the kind of doing the narration for this issue, sees something odd about the ship, and he goes in to investigate, also to find out if like Turmoil has been lying about where he's been. He discovers that this ship has time travel capabilities, and this in a way explains a lot of stuff that happens in future issues. It's explored more in the second issue of this, which is issue 10 of Robots in Disguise, explaining the other story. But this ship links into the Shockwave thing, the Orion Pax story, and comics in the past, so it's really good continuity. But the point is, the ship has arrived on this planet, and it's just one of these fascinating kind of issues, as the whole thing basically revolves around Wheeljack creeping aboard the ship, discovering things, and then getting confronted by Turmoil and getting helped by Metalhawk. A lot of it is the kind of Wheeljack focus is done in these kind of panels. So the page layout is done like this, with 16 panels on the page, and you do that like 3 or 4 times throughout the issue. And it works for Wheeljack in that you get a lot of his thoughts, since there's 16 opportunities to kind of give him lines. So that's cool, and you really get how in-depth he is about this sort of stuff. And just the fact that stuff is happening on planet. Brendan Cahill's art is very solid. It's actually really nice. I suppose one of those things when you have a regular artist like Andrew Griffith, and it's not a departure from the story like, say, this is. Livio's suits the different story that it's telling. But when it's just a different artist on the story, it kind of feels a bit like, not great, because you're so used to the other one. But this actually really works that well. It's really, really good. Next one, it would be issue 8. Now this is an Ironhide focused issue, and the whole idea here is that they on Cybertron they hear a signal out in the wastelands, because the whole planet is basically a husk apart from the one new Iacon city that they're staying in. The rest of it is just a wilderness wasteland. So Ironhide decides to head out to the wilderness with the Dinobots and Skylynx to investigate. And there's this kind of mysterious signal causing most of them to act a bit differently, especially the Dinobots, since they're kind of, I suppose, not the most kind of mentally kind of strong guys, I suppose, because they are kind of more animalistic, that sort of thing. And they're getting more effective than, say, Ironhide is. And they figure out that there's a lot of weird stuff going on out in the wilderness. There's something up with the planet. And also that what happens is that soon the Dinobots start to turn on Skylynx and Ironhide. Ironhide's pretty badly injured, and what basically happens is the issue kind of obviously ends with an attack. But while this is happening, you get stuff in the background like Dirge, who has seen what Prowl has done, is basically telling Shockwave what's going on. So the Decepticons know what Prowl has been doing in the background and all this sort of stuff. So the political stuff is getting even more crazy. Like Prowl, who's involved with Bumblebee, if that comes out in the public, it's going to be bad for Bumblebee and the Autobots on the planet. It's a pretty good issue. It sets up a lot of mysteries, I suppose, in the background that get answered down the line. Obviously, this was a part of Dinobot month where they basically issue 8 of the 2 Robots in Disguise things were kind of Dinobot focused. Grimlock was in issue 8 as I reviewed last week, and the other Dinobots are here. So they did a kind of Dinobot month there. Lastly, it would be Robots in Disguise issue 9. And this one's a Bumblebee focused issue, and the main idea with this one is kind of that Skylynx arrives back after being attacked by the Dinobots, barely alive, and from this they figure out that Ironhide and Dinobots have kind of been lost out in the wilderness. Something happened, they found out that the Dinobots turned, there's something wrong with Skylynx as well, so they find out about this, and Bumblebee wants to lead a search party out there into the wilderness to search for Ironhide. Naturally, makes sense. And then obviously it's like some weird stuff's happening. Obviously we cut back to Ironhide fighting them off. We get some RC stuff doing in the background for Prowl, and more of the fact that people accusing each other of oh, if we go out to search for Ironhide first, we'll get in good politically with everyone because we're going to save people and stuff like this. And then Bumblebee has to deal with that whole thing and stuff like that. Bumblebee asks Blur to help him, but because of Blur not feeling good about what Bumblebee's doing, it's just nice kind of characterization stuff going on. While this is happening, the time ship disappears as if it's time traveled, as if some people have taken it off, and it's revealed that the people who took it were the Reflector Trio, who, not to spoil a really early on issue, they're basically killed in this. So the time travel stuff coming into play here with the time ship which disappears and some crazy stuff going on there. The reason they were out in the wilderness in the first place was to search for the aerial bots who left at the end of one of the early issues of the series. They find them, but now the aerial bots have basically merged into a combiner when they were never built to do so. So this signal is affecting, I suppose, groups of Transformers, the Dinobots, the aerial bots, that they want to merge into one. And that is what is crazy stuff that's happening. That's how this ends, and that's basically the cliffhanger on the show, with the last page being obviously everyone worried about what's going on. As a trade, I suppose it doesn't really work that well as a whole thing. The issues that it's collected don't really tell a specific story, it's just the second volume of War ID. While with More Than Meets the Eye, it kind of does tell a story. The second trade of More Than Meets the Eye told the Delphi story. It told that single issue about Fortress Maximus, and then the 2 scavenger issues. With this, you get the first part of the Orion Pax thing, and then 3 issues of More Than Meets the Eye, and it kind of just ends in the air. But overall, I think it's a pretty solid trade. A lot depends on how much you like the political stuff and how much you can get into that. More Than Meets the Eye is more of my cup of tea, but this is still a really nice trade because I really do enjoy the Orion Pax issues, and I'll get into it more with the next trade, Robots in Disguise 3, but I like it. The art, the 3 artists are actually really solid throughout this whole thing, especially because you get a very different style in Livio, and then 2 kind of slightly different takes on the same style between Brendan Cahill and Andrew Griffith. So really nice stuff. And the next comic I'm going to be reviewing is this, More Than Meets the Eye Volume 3. What an amazing cover that is. So that's going to be a fun one. This one I'm going to review next week. In terms of a video schedule, I'll probably review the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle episode, the new one this week, tomorrow, Saturday. I'll have my next Star Wars review most likely out on Monday. Maybe an Avatar news update video on Wednesday. There's not much to talk about, but I want to put one out. And then maybe come back to the next Transformers comic review on Friday. So that's going to be kind of my schedule, I suppose, for stuff recently. So thank you for watching this review, and bye.